Well, this new record is kind of the first time where I decided that I didn't want to record in a classic studio environment. I was really interested in alternative spaces. I did a bunch of the pre-production in an old church in a town called Rosebud, which is outside Calgary, and then we went outside of Cochrane, Alberta, and used a chapel in the foothills, and we couldn't have asked for a better spot to record the guitars. So that was just really fascinating. The other location that we used was a old church in Darlingford. We kind of set up there and figured out how to run the furnaces. It was minus 30, minus 40 degrees. This time it was in the winter time, and I had to sort it all out, but I did a lot of vocals and some extra guitar work there, and it was just a perfect environment, a great space. I really wanted to work with certain musicians, and I couldn't necessarily fly them all over the place and bring them all to one location and have us all record in a week and get the record done. So I contacted the people that I wanted to work with and proposed distance recording. So that was really fascinating, just communicating via email and by phone, sending things off to Vancouver, to London, England, to Nashville, to Liverpool, Toronto, Calgary even. It was really quite fascinating. And Lloyd, my engineer, we would sit down and wait for these files to come, and they'd come in, and we never really knew what we were going to get. And I lucked out. I worked with some top-notch, incredible musicians and singers, and that was the first time I'd experienced making a record where I wasn't in the same room with the other musicians the whole time. It became this collaborative international recording project, and absolutely loved it. One person who it was really great to have him involved in the project is my friend from Liverpool in England named Scott Pulley. He actually came over to Canada for a couple of weeks and did pre-production with me, and we worked through the songs and tweaked them and got the tempos and the keys right, and then he did all his parts back home in England, and we did emailing of the files, and this is really, really great to have new people in my life playing on the album, and old friends and fans. Became this kind of international collaboration, as I keep saying. For this new record was my first time actually co-writing with some people, primarily a good friend of mine in Ontario named Lewis Melville. I think it's really smart for people to co-write. If only to have somebody call you on things that you might be tempted to do continually over and over and over again. My tendency was to always go this one direction, and he would throw something that from left field, and I would be like, what? No, I don't get it. And then I'd have to go home where I was staying and think about it and go, oh yeah, maybe he's right. Sometimes as songwriters we need somebody to come along and maybe give us a different suggestion, a different idea of how to say something but say it differently. And so I found that really helpful, that Lewis would sit down with me and say, okay, so what is the storyline? And we'd talk about the storyline. He said, well, now how would you say that? And I would say how I'd say it, and he'd say how he'd say it, and somehow between the two of us we'd come up with a really great line or a really great verse or a really great chorus. There was this openness to sharing ideas and wanting what was best for the song, and trying to get the ego out of there, and just looking at the song and creating the song from a musical chord structure perspective, from a melodic perspective, and from a lyrical perspective, and how to make all those work, and how to make them as strong and as unique as possible. Producing your own project is quite a daunting, stressful experience, because it's hard to step away from the project in order to see the forest for the trees. And I was really grateful to have someone like Lloyd, my engineer, on board, who is also a seasoned producer and a musician in his own right, and be able to bounce ideas off of him and have all the musicians be able to contribute ideas and thoughts. And there were some decisions I made that weren't great, and so we went back and redid stuff. So the project took took on a little bit of life of its own and took a bit longer than I had anticipated, but I wanted to give the project the space and the time that it needed, and I wanted to really trust my instincts and my intuition, and I think by giving myself that time I was able to really tap into that. It was the month of May this year. My house was burning, so I went to Miriam's. Just me and my band. Part of this new album for funding is I kind of followed the thing that I've done in the past for my previous solo albums. I've asked people to pre-order a copy of the record in advance. Something called crowdfunding. I call it Indie Music Angels. So people who are interested in being involved in the project from the ground up, and the money that they contribute towards the project goes towards covering all the recording expenses. And I did have great success with my previous solo albums with something like that, but this record just kind of blew the top off of it, and I was so privileged and honored to have people from literally across the globe contributing finances towards the project. A lot of musicians are doing that these days. There's not a lot of money to be had in the record label world, and so we're relying on our friends, our families, and our fans to support us. And so I have this heart that is overflowing with gratitude because people have digged deep into their pockets and contributed financially to this project. And literally, this project would not have been made without their support. So, thank you. I'm looking forward to getting back in the car, on the plane, however mode of transportation I choose, to bring the songs and the record out to you wherever you may be.